Hello there, Internet's Mogwai here, coming at you full screen mode, but still with a Legends of Runeterra video for you guys today we are going to be talking about a Reddit post that I saw this morning, and I think it's a good chance for me to talk about the current state of Legends of Runeterra as a game, and also talk about this post and make use of it to kind of do something fun about it and talk a bit about what changes I would like to see in the upcoming balance patch. So the post that we got here as we transition to our regular recording mode here, I kind of wanted to do something different with the intro, I guess, and showcase my new haircut maybe. But here we are with Reddit and a post that says 33 cards are being changed next week. What cards do you want to see being buffed or nerfed? So this is the post that it inspired me to essentially make this video, and it's like really small. Okay, let's see if we can actually zoom in. There we go, that's better. So it's More Synergy, who is a verified Riot user, and they say, hey, I think this is actually fair feedback. There's always a lot more that we could be saying, and I'm working on some ways to get y'all some more casual dev updates in between patches, especially those off cadence patches like this upcoming one. A lot of the team is super heads down and focused on the work we outlined in the dev video, as well as both the reactive and proactive work from feedback. I'm 12. That we've seen on balance. You'll see some of that in the patch next Tuesday, and we'll be able to talk about more what's coming next regarding balance after that. Even when we're not actively talking, a lot of folks on the team are constantly lurking, scouring Reddit, social channels, Discord, etc. But I know we can be a little bit opaque on what we're working on, so I'll take the feedback in and see how we can improve. To tee up next patch just a bit more though, I will say we got about 33 card updates planned for next week, as well as a neat little balance experiment, so look forward to that. Alright, so the most important thing is this last line right here, because the first three paragraphs are just essentially this person saying that, you know, they want to communicate more. I'm going to be honest, we're at a point, at least from my perspective, in which Riot has been promising more communication for quite some time, and it's all been words, but we haven't really been getting actual proper communication for quite a bit. Things used to be much better in the Rising Tides days in that regard. We used to have these scheduled calls actually with Riot developers to talk about some potential balance changes and stuff, and that stopped happening. So yeah, things have definitely gone downhill on that sense, and I'm at a point where I'm not gonna lie, like, you know, I'm gonna stop taking like their, you know, promises seriously, and I'm just gonna stick to facts and things that actually do happen, right? Because, you know, this is just spinning the wheel again and again. Like, yeah, okay, you're gonna talk more with us. All right, well, we'll see if that's actually the case. You know, I don't mean to be harsh here, but I do feel like, you know, like they've been saying a bunch of stuff lately, and they haven't been quite up to par with their promises in regards to their actions, right? We've seen, you know, them say that we're gonna have monthly balance patches, and I don't know when that's supposed to happen, right? And I think one of the main reasons, or at least the strong reason as to why we're in this situation, is more than lack of communication, really lack of action, right? I made a post not that long ago, really. I'm not sure exactly when this was. I'm not sure if there's a date here. Yeah, there is. The 27th of February. So almost a month ago, I made a twit longer. I did it. I did a twit longer, guys. I don't know if there's probably a lot of you watching this video that don't know about this, because I posted it on my Twitter. But I wrote a novel, essentially, in which I gave an argument for a Bandle City hotfix, right? I said that I believe this is the worst expansion in Legends of Runeterra history, which has led to a metagame that is quite frankly frustrating to invest in. I believe the game is in a rather critical state right now, and I want to advocate for a hotfix of sorts. Having to wait over 30 or more days for a balance patch will lead to a loss of interest and a reduction in the PvP player base, from which I'm not sure Legends of Runeterra will fully recover. This was a month ago. I think at this point we can, you know, I don't want to sound cocky here, but I think what I was saying here was pretty on point as to where we are now. Like, The data that I have to support this is very minimal, but I have years of experience as a content creator for card games. I've seen many ships sink in the past, and I'm aware of the signs. I've been doing YouTube for a long time now. I've been focusing on card games for the majority of my lifespan on this platform, and I've seen many card games come and go. I've been a part of many games in the past that have risen and fallen, and I tend to notice when things are going downhill. And by the end of February, I was noticing that we were headed in this sort of direction with the game. And the main reason, because something like this may sound very harsh, especially if a developer is reading this, it may seem like it's, I could express things in a bit of a kinder way, and I agree. Sometimes I'm a bit too, I wouldn't say direct, but I could choose my words better. But it's the reality. I do believe that the third, out of the Bandle City expansion, the third part, the final part of the expansion, the one with that we got with Yuumi, the most recent one, basically, Yuumi, Galio, Udyr, Gnar. I believe that is the worst expansion in Legend of Runeterra history. I believe that expansion provided nothing but bad things for the game, really. I think the most interesting champions were critically underpowered in comparison to a Bandle City champion that became just universal across the board. And I think the only thing that the expansion truly succeeded in was in pushing really toxic playstyles and a very unbalanced and poorly designed region, in my opinion, in Bandle City to the top of the meta. Not only did it exacerbate the problems within Bandle City itself, but it also led to other problems with Faded, for example. It really pushed Faded over the edge as well. Bandle City was already rising and really strong, but the addition of Yuumi has given in my opinion, has given the archetype a bit of an extra, push, and has enabled it to wreak havoc on the meta. So basically, I made this post. I was worried about Legend of Runeterra declining, and here we are right now. The game has reached an all-time low when it comes to just player base. Like, viewers on Twitch and viewers on YouTube are lower than ever. And if you think, well, you're only using your channel as an example, maybe people just don't like you anymore because you're whining all the time and this and that, blah, 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 blah. I get that a lot. It's actually all across the board. It's every single YouTube channel out there has significantly less views. It's not just me. Like, I've actually, I've had Grappler, not directly with me, but he's spoken about it with Shermie, and it's just essentially something that's happening to all of us, right? Because the general interest in the game is low. And it's also important to note that the Legends of Runeterra subreddit has reached that critical point that I see a lot with card games, that I've been a part of that have gone downhill, and that is that the Reddit goes from people whining to people just essentially just saying everything is fine, right? When a subreddit reaches a point in which the activity is very low and the little activity that exists is positive, people saying that, unpopular opinion, the game is completely fine, and this and that, oh, the game is actually great, and that's actually a big red flag. That means that people are done whining, because when you're whining, when you're complaining, you actually care about the game, you're invested, and that's why you're complaining. But when you don't see the complainers nearly as much, that means that they're the fuck out of there. They left a while ago, and that's bad, okay? I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. The game is in a critical state, like I said a month ago, and we've reached that point. I don't want to be a doomsayer. But I don't want to be, I want to be realistic with you guys, right? And I feel like this is the most important patch that Legend of Runeterra will ever have. So to see that we're getting 33 cards change is a big deal. Also, we'll see what the little balance experiment is all about. We'll have to wait and see what that is. But, putting that aside, the 33 card updates, that's a lot of cards. That's a lot of changes. And that can definitely do a lot to shift things up. Will it be enough to gather interest in the game again? I feel like a lot of damage has been done at this point. I think in today's day and age, people's attention span is shorter than ever. And there's a lot of people who probably just don't really, they're going to need something, they're going to need to be compelled to go back to Legend of Runeterra. I'm just trying to be realistic here, right? But for those of us, who love the game and who just enjoy playing it and want to see it do well, this could be a big turning point, right? And it could save the game from just a big downfall, really. Like I said, it's a game backed by Riot, so ultimately, if they want, they can keep it afloat. But it depends on what direction they take it that will affect content creators such as myself, right? If they decide that PvE is the way to go, then no hard feelings, like they don't owe me anything. Like I'm a content creator for the game. Like I don't. But I also want to be upfront about it in this video and say that I won't be a slave to a game that does not make me happy and makes me frustrated just for the sake of views and, being able to sustain myself, right? Like I will just move on. Like I feel like my content is not just about one game. It's more than that. And I believe in my content, and I am in a pretty positive state right now in that sense. Like I'm experimenting with other stuff, and I feel like whatever it is, whatever direction I take, like I'm really, I'm in a good mental state for it. Like I'm motivated, and that's me. Like Riot owes me nothing, and I won't be like, if they decide to make it if they decide to go down the PvE route, then so be it, right? We don't know, right? This post shows that they care, that they still, they've heard all the feedback and they want to fix the current state of the game. So 33 card updates is a big deal. And having been done with this part of the ramble, I want to talk a little bit about what changes I'd like to see. In my novel, I go over, certain chapters of like YouTube interest, then Bandle City bad, angry face, ugly play patterns, and ultimately I end up in the chapter of, how do we fix this? How do we fix this shit? And I talk about the most immediate changes. This is gearing for a hotfix. This is not what I was expecting out of the balance patch, but I was asking for a hotfix to fix these things immediately, so that we would have some breathing room and the meta would be a little bit better before the balance patch ultimately hit March 30th. We didn't get the hotfix. I wrote a novel for essentially nothing, but at least I can make use of it for this video. So here I mentioned Conchologist and Loping Telescope. I mentioned Gnar, Yordles and Arms, Bandle Tree, Wallop, Papercraft Dragon, and Mini-Morph. Even though I believe Mini-Morph is ultimately bad for the game. But as of now, I can't argue for it being overpowered. I do feel it's quite oppressive, though with a drop in the play rate of Bandle City, the card maybe would be fine as it is, right? And here, I say prologue instead of epilogue, because I'm an idiot. I derped. But yeah, as soon as possible, I believe we're in a bit of a dire situation, and yeah, I think, right now we're living that, right? So, back to, essentially, we're going to go ahead onto the game now. If I can find the thing. Google out. There we go. Now we're in the client, right? So I have a list here. All right. I have a list of, essentially, I guess the sound was off. That was weird. I have a list of nerfs and buffs that I would like to see. I made this rather quickly, honestly, because I wasn't anticipating on making this video, and I've been short on time, so there may be some things that I've missed, but this is the general. With the nerfs, I have a more clear idea of what I want, but with the buffs, I'm just throwing out some ideas here and there, right? But I thought it'd be cool to look over them. So regarding the nerfs, the vast majority of the nerfs are within the Bandle City region, right? And what I like to see is, first of all, Conchologist and Loping Telescope. Those are the two most important cards that I want to see nerfed, big time. Like, if I don't see these cards nerfed within the balance patch, I'm probably done. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I am so. One of the biggest gripes of me with Legend of Runeterra right now is the manifest mechanic. I do not believe Legend of Runeterra really needed manifest. And I think Invoke was fine because we had a set card pool, but cards like Conchologist and especially Loping Telescope have become incredibly frustrating to go up against, and people are advocating for certain nerfs that I don't think are enough anymore. First of all, Conchologist as a 2-1 does not fix the card. Please stop pushing or advocating for Conchologist as a 2-1. That is a shit of a nerf, and if I see that, I will be mad. I'm just gonna go, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. Like, no. 2-1 Conchologist is not enough. Conchologist needs to not be able to deal 2 damage on striking. So I would love to see Conchologist as a 1-1. 1-2 if it must be. But I think we need to make manifest a mechanic that you have to pay a price for. And that price is in stats. Conchologist should not be able to trade into 2 mana 3/2s. So it should not have 2 power. It needs to have its power reduced to 1. I can live with a 1-2. Or a 1-1 would be ideal, but a 1-2 I can also accept. A 2-1 I cannot accept. That is, I'm not budging on that. Like, I want Conchologist to be 1 power, and that's very, very important. Loping Telescope. This I arguably hate this card even more. I think we need to get rid of the epic slot. I think there's a lot of nonsense that happens, and it really sucks to invest into a match for multiple rounds and then just lose to a bomb. Like, I've lost to so many random, like, crazy late game bombs from this thing. Like Ruination, Feel the Rush, all those are epics, and this thing can pull it off and you can never really anticipate it. And I feel it is just detrimental from the game, and I would like that to be changed. I would have Loping Telescope just be a 3 mana play. If they want to keep the epic slot, just make it 3 mana. Just absolutely obliterate this card. I think nobody will complain about that. If not, then make it a 2 mana 1-1 and still take away the epic. I've had it could make a Fae, for example. It could manifest a Fae instead of an epic. Gabby actually told me that suggestion, and I think it was a very neat one, right? Make it a 2 mana 1-1 and take away the epic. Or if you want to keep the epic and you just want to be Hearthstone, then make it a 3 mana 2-1. You'll notice I'm a little bit more direct and maybe aggressive in this video than I normally am, because I'm at a point where I just feel like I don't want to hold back. Yeah, if anybody's bothered by my attitude and stuff, you know, then I'm sorry. But I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna shy away. I'm just gonna say things how I feel like they should be, and that's that. Not saying I'm right in absolutely everything or anything like that, but I'm giving you guys my opinion because I have a YouTube channel. And an opinion. So we're gonna go with that. Pokey Stick. We got Pokey Stick here. I really dislike how this card does not fizzle if it doesn't hit the target. I think that's not a nerf that would really kill the card by any means, but I would like this card to have the same treatment cards like Glimpse Beyond have. Like, imagine if Glimpse Beyond was like, kill an ally, and then point, draw 2. So there's like no interaction. I love how Glimpse Beyond can be disrupted. Why can't Pokey Stick be disrupted? Why do we have to be receiving these sorts of cards that just cycle themselves with like no risk at all? Like, I don't think, I think that diminishes the interaction within the game, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why Pokey Stick is so frustrating to see every time. It's just like, no matter what you do, they're gonna draw a card off of it, and I just don't think. Especially when you face these Bandle Tree decks with the Noxus base removal, I just don't think the card should do that. I think it should be able to be disrupted. Like, if they want to poke something from me, and I'm able to like glimpse beyond that unit or whatever, then or just maybe like Ravenous Flock it myself, you know, etc. Right? Like, if I remove my unit, I want to have the ability to make this card fizzle and prevent them from drawing, which is something that Bandle City is too efficient at, and I think that's a reasonable nerf to ask for personally. We have other cards here like the Fae, well, the Twisted Catalyzer. I've defended Darkness. I think Darkness is in a state where Thresh Nasus was. I don't think it's a toxic deck. I don't think it's highly oppressive either. I just feel like it's been at the top for a bit too long now, and it would be fine to tone it down just so that other decks can have a bit of some time in the limelight, right? And I think Twisted Catalyzer is the ideal card to hit within the archetype. I think making this a 2 mana 2/2 would be very neat. You know, it could still progress darkness, but it would be punished by 2 mana 2/3s, and it will no longer be able to trade into fearsomes and into units with 3 health, which is something that otherwise darkness really struggles with, right? Like, I feel like darkness should be weak against fearsome decks, and Twisted Catalyzer being able to block into those is a bit of a, you know, it really is what makes the deck tier 1, and I feel like nerfing it to a 2/2 would be pretty ideal. What else we got here as we go down? I think Gleaming Lantern as a 3/3 is a bit much. I would make Gleaming Lantern a 2/2. I think we need to start punishing or asking for the region to pay a price for its ability to just spread out and play stuff that replaces itself upon entry anyways. So I just want to see an overall stat reduction to the swarmy tactics within Bandle City, and Gleaming Lantern being a 2/2 would take quite a bit of, you know, just tempo out of them, right? And I think that's really, really important. For a card that essentially allows you to go turbo, I think that's a pretty reasonable nerf to ask for. As we go down, I think Wall Up, especially because it's a Gnar signature spell, should be 4 mana. I think this card has no business being 3 mana. I think it's better than a lot of Ionia stun spells, and that shouldn't be the case because Ionia is the region with the efficient fast speed stun spells. So Wall Up being 3 mana is something that I've never really been on board with, especially because it's also pinging as well. And I think making this card 4 mana is a must. I also argue for it in the novel that I showcased earlier. So Wall Up to 4 mana. I also think Buster Shot should have a higher requirement, the same treatment as I want for Yordles and Arms, really. I think asking them to play 5 different regions this game to enable Buster Shot is ideal. I feel like this card gets enabled way too early. I don't believe in making it 3 mana because then it's just kind of like really bad, right? Like it's just for 3 mana, dealing 3 mana at slow speed. I don't think that's the direction I'd like for things to go, even though Bandle City is a region that having like removal like this is actually, you know, it adds more to its repertoire. But I think just making it more difficult for it to meet this requirement is ideal, and I like it to be 5 different regions instead of 4. What else we got here? We keep going down. There's a lot to talk about. Papercraft Dragon, I think this card leads to a lot of toxic gameplay. It's not really the most relevant thing in the meta right now, but I think it's very toxic, and I don't like the double attack with the attach is just kind of nuts, and I would like a bit of a stat reduction on it and make it in a 1/1 personally. Bandle Tree, I would, in an ideal world, they just delete this card from the game. I think this is the worst designed card Legend of Runeterra has ever seen. It is the lamest win condition you could possibly think of in a card game, really, and it's very unimaginative, uninspired, and it feels awful to play against. It's very binary because of of how limited the. You know, I explain it here in the post in a less salty way. so let's go back to here. Like I talk about, you know, about Bandle Tree. You know, Bandle Tree effectively stalls the game with a combination of high tempo based unit swarm that grants card advantage in the process with the capacity to defeat you in its own right, backed by a landmark that will win the game once you've met the summoning requirements. Some players have argued Bandle Tree is not really an issue. I disagree greatly. Landmark design in this game is honestly a bit of a mess. I don't mean to disrespect the developers, but I'm just being honest here. Landmark reminds me of enchantments in Magic the Gathering, yet removal for them in Legend of Runeterra is very poorly distributed, and the way they are designed, increasing the availability and efficiency of said removal would do more harm than good. I don't believe adding more landmark removal would be good for the game, because archetypes like Thralls, that are really cool in my opinion, pun intended, would actually, you know, well, actually, I say it here. Unique archetypes like Thralls would lose all viability, since countdown-based landmarks becoming more exposed would lead to a glass cannon strategy that just would not be worth using for ladder. My problem with landmark design is that I believe you cannot have it both ways, in the sense that you cannot design uninteractive win conditions like Bandle Tree and Star Spring, while at the same time limiting landmark interaction significantly. Notice I mentioned Star Spring. Yes, Star Spring is also a problem. While I do believe this landmark is also problematic, it's in a much healthier state than Bandle Tree, because unlike Tree, which is limited to what you summon, a play that the opponent can never truly stop from happening, by the way, Star Spring requires you to maintain a certain board presence, which the opponent can potentially disrupt. right? That's the difference between the two. I still don't think Star Spring was good design, but it's definitely in a much better state than Bandle Tree. There are arguments that state that it's okay for there to be a stall win condition that enables victory if you're able to defend and control the opponent's aggression. I agree. We had great examples of cards that do this, such as Karma, Feel the Rush, Darkness, etc. The difference between these cards and Bandle Tree is that while they provide tremendous power, they don't have a text that just says, win the game. This is both dull and especially frustrating to go up against. Emphasis on the dull. It's very, very dull. One can argue the end results is the same, but the player experience matters, and it is not a coincidence this archetype gets a lot of complaints from the player base. English. So, essentially, I feel like this card was a big mistake. Making a win condition landmark like this in a game where landmark removal is so weirdly distributed is just not the way to go, and the binary nature of this card just makes it really frustrating to face. And I think a lot of people watching this video can what's the word? Can relate. There we go. Can relate to this statement. I would rather they delete this card or redesign it. But if we have to see a nerf, then at least make it 6 mana or something like that. Something to just slow it down. Even though I just don't like the card existing at all, to be honest. But you can't have it all, I guess. Yordles in Arms. I would like for this card to either only buff +3/+3 or have a more, have a requirement of 5 or more regions, right? I think this card needs to be nerfed 100%. I don't think it needs to be completely dunked into the ground, but it definitely needs to be nerfed, and that's the least that I would expect from the developers. I think this card will 100% get hit because it not only is it about the play rate, but also the win rate. It shows how powerful this card is, and we can definitely expect one of the two changes, or maybe something even more harsh, which I honestly will not be against. I am a little bit biased against the Yordles, but it is what it is. Minimorph. I don't like Minimorph existing in the game. I think it shuts down a lot of stuff, even though it does stop Lee Sin, which is one of the most toxic design cards in the game, and I think also should be nerfed. But just the fact that this card stops that does not make it okay. And I've had issues with this card for a while. But like I said in the tweet longer, I do feel like it could be maybe overlooked if Bandle City is super nerfed and their play rate goes down significantly, even though I do feel like this card existing does lead to more problems than positive things, and that's my personal opinion, because burst speed removal effectively shuts down a lot of late game strategies that revolve around late game units, as the opponent has no chance whatsoever to respond to something like that. And the fact that it's a permanent sort of transformation and silence is a big deal when it can interact with champions. That's the biggest thing, the fact that it interacts with champions. And I think it's a very, very problematic card that a lot of people have shown their distaste for, including Grappler. Grappler does not like Minimorph, and he's made that pretty clear. So yeah, that's essentially with the regular cards. When it comes to the champions, I'd like them to nerf Gnar. I think Mega Gnar having quick attack is something that they could lose. That plus, the Pokey stick change and the nerf to Wallop, I think maybe could be enough to nerf Gnar. I don't want to go overboard and make him unplayable, but I do feel like, this champion is definitely way too good right now. And I think the Mega Gnar having quick attack is one of the biggest issues, and one of the things that really makes this card go crazy, right? So that's what I would personally approach towards that. And that's all when it comes to Bandle City. I believe I've mentioned everything. Yes. Then we have Targon. With Targon, we have essentially Pantheon. I think Pantheon needs to be nerfed. Pantheon, the fact that he gets random keywords as well, it enhances the level of variance within the game, which is a bit of a problem. So I would, at least for me personally, so I would like to see some sort of nerf to Pantheon. How to nerf Pantheon, I'm not exactly sure, honestly. There are several ways to do so, like slowing him down, but I'm not really sure what it is that I want to see, but I want to see something is all I'm going to say. I don't really have an answer for it right now because I haven't thought about it too much, but I definitely would like to see Pantheon nerfed. And I also think we need to talk about Zenith Blade. I think Zenith Blade is a very problematic card, has been for a while, especially ever since Faded got printed. It's problematic with Lee Sin as well, allowing Lee Sin to combine with Targon. And I feel like it's actually low-key a very powerful effect, granting an ally overwhelm and having the card effectively cycle itself. Even though it was intentionally made for Daybreak decks and Leona decks, the card actually is kind of really nuts, especially with faded units that just keep snowballing out of control, in conjunction with Yuumi just buffing really fast as well. And I feel like something needs to be done about Zenith Blade, though I'm not exactly sure what. But it is a highly problematic card, and I will not be shocked to see it getting hit either. Pharaohs, when it comes to PnZ, let's go to PnZ. I would, not you, Target. I would like to talk about your boy Pharaohs. Pharaohs is not talked about enough, but he's actually like built over his own conchologist. I think Manifest, again, I think we need to move away from these 2-mana 2/2s that manifest, and I think Pharaohs also needs a nerf. I would be okay with Pharaohs being a 2/1 because he's not as efficient as Conchologist and not as universal as Conchologist because the 6-cost spell limits him in more fast-paced decks. But some sort of stat reduction needs to happen here, I believe, because this card is quite as problematic as Conchologist. Maybe not exactly, but very close to that power level. And the disparity, like sometimes you pull off some stuff like Harsh Winds, which is just nuts in certain scenarios, and it can be very, very frustrating to face when you're facing the Concurrent Timelines deck. And I think he is a part of the issue with the Manifest mechanic, and yeah, he's part of the problem, in my opinion. When it comes to Shadow Isles, for a bit of a further nerf to Darkness, I think that the target that needs to be hit is actually Senna. I believe Senna is the strongest card in Darkness. People love to talk about Vhagar, but Vhagar alone doesn't quite do it, right, a lot of times. But Senna is what really pushes the deck over the edge. Senna has a pretty decent stat line compared, combined with her insane effect of just giving you a darkness upon summon and continuously generating you a darkness every single time she attacks. Like the fact that she's converting your spells to fast speed while attacking and generating you darkness is really crazy because she's a value engine that also allows you to set up stuff like fast speed ruination, which is just absolutely bonkers, right? So I think that I've seen some people suggest a reduction in the stat line to a 4/3. That would be a good place to start to enable to make it easier to remove her, essentially, which I think would be a nice nerf for the card. Then we got Ionia. I want to move to Ionia for a moment, and I have 3 cards here. I want Eye of the Dragon. I agree. I think it was Aikado who said that Eye of the Dragon should be a 1-mana 1/2 with no attune. And the reason why this would be a good nerf is because she would not be able to be combined with Crescendum from Targon, which pulls out a 2-drop, right? And I think this would be a fantastic change to Eye of the Dragon, who still would be a very good card because she would be a 1-drop. She would be able to come down turn 1, but she's easier to remove, and she doesn't synergize with Crescendum, which I think is pretty important. And I would definitely, I'm on board with that change 100%. I also think Irelia could have a tune. I think it kind of makes up for the big nerf to Flawless Duet. And that's something that I would be fine with as well. Yeah, that's actually a buff that I'm going to talk about later, actually. Well, we talk about it now. I'd like to see a buff to Irelia with a tune, and I think I like that quite a bit. And I would also like a nerf to Lee Sin, man. I think something needs to change with Lee Sin. I think he's so toxic right now, and the only reason why he's not over the ladder is because Mini-Morph exists, right? But it's still a very problematic card for tournaments. And I think this champion has gone under the radar for far too long, and he needs a significant nerf in some way to really hinder his late game, and perhaps something revolving around the barrier or the likes. And yeah, for the last region that I want to talk about in regards to nerfs, it would be Demacia. I think it's time that we nerf Golden Aegis. I think Golden Aegis should go to 5 mana because it. I feel like it's doing a bit too much, and right now we're seeing a lot of representation for Demacia, but mostly because of the spells, not really the units. And that is because of Golden Aegis and the strike spells. And I think strike spells are fine as they are, but it's time that we nerf Golden Aegis to 5 mana, and we take a little bit of pressure off of more late game oriented decks that are super affected by rally oriented strategies, right? So that's that. And now we can have a little bit of fun and talk about some buffs that I would love to see. And I got them listed right here. We're gonna talk a little bit about each region. No buffs for Bandle City. This is so salty. Let's talk about Bilgewater. First, I'd love to see a buff to Nautilus of some sorts. I'm not sure, maybe a cost reduction here, like to 6 mana, something like that. Like I feel like it wouldn't really break the game, and I'd be really excited to see Deep getting a buff like this. I think it's something that a lot of people could get on board with. I love playing Nautilus, and I feel like he's a bit too heavy right now, and you can take a little bit of a load off of that, and he wouldn't be oppressive or anything. And I'd also love a revert to your boy Riptide Rex. I think this guy can go back to being an 8 mana 7/4 that casts 8 cannon barrages. I think there's no problem with that whatsoever. I think a lot of us miss Riptide Rex. I think he's one of the coolest aspects of the Rising Tides expansion, and just one of the dopest cards ever printed, in my opinion, in Legends of Runeterra. And I'd love to see him back at his full glory. You know, I miss him. I miss your boy. So I'd love to see that. When it comes to Demacia, I wouldn't mind a revert for War Chefs, bringing War Chefs back to 2-3. Demacia is really strong right now, but it's mostly because of the spells, not really the units. The units aren't really anywhere near oppressive, and getting back 2 mana 2-3 War Chefs would be fine, honestly. Like I kind of miss that. It would give a lot of flexibility with the 2-drop slot, and it would lead to some potential resurgence of certain Demacia mid-range decks, which would be pretty neat. And I would also like the same thing applied to Radiant Guardian. I miss 5/5 Radiant Guardian, being able to just make aggro and burn players cry. I think, you know, I think we're in a situation where it would be fine to go back to that stat line. And yeah, that's basically what I got to say about that. I miss her. As we can now move on to Freljord. With Freljord, I'd love to see, obviously, a buff to Udyr. Not only Udyr, to Spirits Unleashed as well. Please, for the love of God, make this cost like at least 4 mana, like 5 mana. What the actual fuck, you know? Like, Gnar gets Wallop and Udyr gets this, like, Jesus. So yeah, that and some sort of stat increase for Udyr alongside that to make him more resilient. And, you know, give him more potential as a snowbally sort of champion. So Udyr needs a significant buff, in my opinion. I think you have to target both the card and the signature spell as well. Regarding other cards that I'd like to see buffed, I'd actually love to see an 11 mana War Mother's Call. You may call me crazy, but I think it would not be that ridiculous at all, and it would lead to some, you know, some other variants of like ramp decks outside of Field of Rush that would be viable. I think it wouldn't really break stuff, and we're in a state of the game where I think we can definitely afford it, and it would be a very nice ramp buff to experiment with, right? Like, I would be really, really excited about something like that. Also, I think we can make They Who Endure back to 6 mana. I think, you know, the Shadow Isles, Freljord, sort of like They Who Endure Atrocity archetype was never really super oppressive. I mean, at one point it was really strong, but I feel like we're at a point where we can bring that back, and it would be really neat, in my opinion. And then what is the other? Oh yeah, I mentioned that. It's the Spirits Unleashed for Udyr as well. So that's for Freljord. For Ionia, like I mentioned, I think a tune to Irelia and a buff to Yasuo. Just yet another reduction to the level up requirement. As you know, it's not like Yasuo is going to become meta defining anytime soon, and I think, you know, continuing to slowly but surely make him a little bit stronger until we reach a point in which okay, calm down. Is the right approach, and I'd love to see that, you know. Not necessarily Bandle City Yasuo, but, you know, something of the likes would be pretty cool. Noxus, I'd love a Katarina rework of some sorts. Not exactly sure what, but I don't really want to buff Katarina, because I think a really like efficient Katarina in her current shape and form would be very toxic, actually. So I would like a redesign of the champion, who has just such a sick academy art here, by the way, that I really like. And also please revert Scion. Like, Scion should never have been nerfed. Make him 10 power again, for the love of God. Well, what have they done to my boy? Just get it back. Both Scion and Scion Return, just the way he was. He was fine. He was completely fine. Then PnZ. I don't want to buff to Echo. Again, I've said it numerous times that Echo is not underpowered. I believe Echo just needs more support and to be able to be mixed with other regions inside of Shurima, because the PnZ Shurima region combination has a lot of weaknesses, right? and it'd be nice to have Echo be more flexible in that regard. And yeah, you don't really want a buff to Echo, but I would like a buff to Victor. I think we can definitely afford a focus speed 0 mana hex score upgrade. Right, let's do it. Just balls it. Let's do it. What's the worst that could happen? You know, a Victor meta? Is that really the worst thing ever? I don't think so. 0 mana hex score upgrade, focus speed. Let's go. And besides that, I'd also like some buffs to Caitlyn's package. You know, Caitlyn does a lot on her own, which is really neat. But I'm kind of sad that we don't have Flash Bomb Traps to be more like an archetype on its own. Like maybe some sort of buff to Advanced Intel or Justice Rider would be really neat to see, personally. Also, like I was scrolling through the cards and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Coup de grace? I forgot this card existed. Yeah, maybe do something about this as well. I wouldn't mind them redesigning this, to be honest. I think this was a missed call, you know. Like I don't like the design of this card. I feel like it could be something cooler. I don't know. That's just my opinion. And then we can move on to Shadow Isles. We have quite a bit to say about Shadow Isles. I'd love to see a buff to Hecarim. I think we're at a point where we can see some sort of buff to Hecarim. I saw somebody suggest in chat that Hecarim should be able to auto spawn when an ephemeral ally is attacking. You know, kind of like Jarvan, right? You still pay the 6 mana, but you don't have to, you just summon him immediately. I love something like that because it would enhance synergies with stuff like Maokai setting up a Vile Feast, you know, getting, or yeah, like a Vile Feast or something, setting up the Sapling, or even Sapling Toss, right? You can set those up and then you can attack. It would also enhance synergies with forgotten cards like the Stirred Spirits, and also would make Shark Chariot tremendously, like much better, right? Because both of these cards can you can open attack and get some ephemeral synergy going on. And then, I mean, Shark Chariot necessarily wouldn't be the case because you need to attack with an ephemeral unit anyways. But cards like Stirred Spirit, you know, you attack, you grant something ephemeral, and then Hecarim just goes down, you know. I don't know if it would work like that because you're declaring the attack with a support already. So I'm not sure if that would actually work properly. But I'd love to see, at least with Sapling Toss, you know. And stuff like that, and even with Mark of the Isles, right? You can set up some open attacks with Omaiwa Mushindaru Hecarim, and I think that would be really, really, really dope, personally. I also would love to see a buff to Curse Keeper, a revert, basically. I think we can go back to 4/3 Escaped Abomination. I really think that would be really neat, and you know, it feels really bad for this thing to trade into 1-drops, essentially. Especially because you gotta work for the last breath and everything. You gotta have synergy for it. And I don't think that would be bad to go back to 4/3 Escape Abomination. 4/4 was too much. I agree with that. But back to 4/3 would be really nice. And also, why not make stuff like Iron Harbinger? You know, like Iron Harbinger maybe coming on the board and giving you Hecarim Signature Spell, fleeting. Like, I don't want more cards generating cards, right, upon entry. Unless they're fleeting. If they're fleeting, it's fine because you have to spend the mana for them. And maybe, you know, have Iron Harbinger create you a Onslaught of the Shadows, I think it's called, right? I think? I can't find it. Yeah, Onslaught of Shadows. Yeah, just a fleeting Onslaught of Shadows that can allow you to pump it up from the get-go and bring back a card that never really saw played ever and make it relevant. It would be really cool to see. I just love to see some support for the ephemeral archetype more than anything, and see Curse Keeper back to its original form before, you know, it was a 4/4. I think that's pretty reasonable if you ask me. And then we got Shurima. So when it comes to Shurima, I would like to see Azir getting a bit buffed again. I think they, you know, for the sake of Irelia, I think they murdered this poor boy, and I think it would be nice to revert him back to how he was before. You know, if you do that, maybe you can leave Irelia alone, fucker. But I don't know. I miss your boy Azir being more relevant, and it'd be nice to see that. And also, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing something like Careful Preparation going down to 2 mana, for example, for some wonky predict synergies. And I would like some, you know, empowerment to these, you know, forgotten, like, slow speed, awful, expensive spells like Shifting Sands and Boomerang Blade. Like, do something about this shit, you know, like make them a little bit cheaper, do something to make them a bit more relevant, and so that Shurima is not so much about like either a few like very good cards and then everything else is trash, right? I feel like Shurima can offer so much more as a region, and I'd like them to explore stuff like this in that regard. Maybe some Sand Soldier synergy, etc., etc. That would be neat. And last but not least, we got Targan. Please do something about Aphelios. I miss your boy Aphelios. I'm gonna advocate for Aphelios and the Veil Temple, honestly. I miss them. I'm not saying they should be like they were before, but maybe giving Aphelios a tune, for example, or enhancing the stat line, something to make this boy, this poor sad emo boy, like actually competitively viable. And also with the Veil Temple, man, I miss the Veil Temple being meta relevant. I think this was a really good card, like an early or to mid game investment that then give you a strong payoff that would snowball. Was also very neat. I'm not exactly sure how you would buff it, but I would like to see something done about this card. And that's the end of my TED Talk, ladies and gentlemen. That was a long ass video. We talked about a lot of stuff today. And ultimately the future for Legends of Runeterra. I'm not gonna lie, like it's gonna come down to this balance patch. And we're gonna see what's the future for this channel. Nothing is set in stone. We're gonna wait, and I'm gonna continue experimenting and broadening my horizons, as I do love card games, and I'm never a slave to one. So I wanna clarify that, because sometimes people think that I betray a community or this and that but no, I gotta do what I want to do, and I feel like my content is much better when that's the case. So time will tell, but yeah, this is going to be a very important patch, and we'll see where things go. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what changes you would like to see, what nerfs, and potentially what buffs as well. Like, it'd be exciting to see what buffs you guys can come up with, and I probably missed a lot of really cool ideas that could happen, and it would be really exciting. There's a lot to expect from a 33 card change. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot. And the balance experiment, which we have to wait what that is about. So yeah, we'll just be eager for that. For the time being, I'm going to take a little bit of a time off from uploading. I'm going to wait until the patch hits and just take some time to recharge, honestly, and wait for that. So hopefully you guys understand, and I'll still be around streaming for those of you who want to see my Yu-Gi-Oh streams, as I'm learning the game and I'm having a blast. And that's where I'm going to end this video at. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for regular videos of whatever the sort. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel and for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. I'll see you guys around.